In this video, we present deeper insights about the higher self. We wanted to know what the higher self's perspective of itself is and what purpose it serves. If you want to know more about the deeper meaning of higher self and what it has to say, I suggest you watch this hypnosis session video. Is the higher self and the soul the same thing? Let's see what Heidis Higher Self has to say about it. We want to make a difference to how hypnosis can be used to seek truth and uncover hidden knowledge. Please support our work with subscribing and make sure you activate the notification bell. We are grateful for every thumbs up. We as well love your participation in the comment section below. Please share your thoughts and insights. And please share this channel with others you know. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, welcome. How are you today?
Good.
Can I challenge you? Are you from the light and love?
Yes.
Can you please scan the body of Heidi to make sure she's okay?
Yes.
Let me know if we have to consider something or change something during our session here, okay?
Yes.
So how is Heidi lately? How do you perceive her in the last couple of weeks?
She's been very observant with everything that's going on right now. And her body has been, the part of it has been stressed because of what is around now. She feels the heaviness of the energies.
What kind of energies are these?
It's a shift that's within the universe.
How does it affect Heidi?
Her vibration.
Please consider to subscribe right now. Hit the notification bell and like our work here. Thank you.
It's to a point where it affects the abilities to think clearly as the emotional feelings become extremely elevated. To some individuals who observe more within them.
Are you aware that we have a session today and we would like to have some questions answered? Is that okay today?
Yes, as they come forth, only so many can be answered to what is in need.
Absolutely, thank you. First of all, the point is here that we, in this time and space, many humans are talking about the higher self and there are different labels to it. And we would like to know a little bit more about the labeling or the concept of higher self. So I would like to have you answer a few questions if that would be okay. Are you ready to listen to my first question?
Yes.
Can you please explain us and to our audience what is the higher self from your own perspective?
It is a mass of information in existence that anyone can pull. But in order to be a creator of that, it is most important to make sure that the certain individual is in a certain part within them on a frequency, as this is when the information flows. So we are all connected to one, however, separately to ourselves. So the higher self is within each individual, but there is also something that's more great and powerful within them that is above that as well. And the only way to connect with that is to know within yourself already. It can be very difficult, and this can take a certain amount of energy within them, and sometimes it's not even found.
So I would understand that even almost like levels. So if you talk about the higher self, there's even something more deep or higher up. How would you elaborate on that?
If you would say that as a human, yes, we think everything is equal here. But to explain it within the human mind, it would be a greater existence.
So then I go into my second question here. Please explain the higher self from the human perspective.
As a human, we are always looking for the answers, and we ask. So it's a part of us that has the ability to tell and show us what we need to be looking for or at. It is something that an individual would call a Christ consciousness, godly consciousness, a light within them. So many humans try to look for the answers, and they see this in concept as this. However, the more they look within that concept, the further they will come and away.
So if we call the higher self, is that appropriate? Or from your own perspective, would there be, if you would label it or give a name, a more appropriate name or labeling?
Names are not that important, but images are more so. So to see an image as a creation, as names are just words. You have to see, imagine what that would be like, and not just that, to feel what that would feel like as well.
Then I'm asking you to show Heidi's mind an image or a picture as close as possible, how and what the higher self would look like as an image or a picture.
She sees herself as a person, and as she sees the higher self, it is extremely high and expanded, as there really is not an image to that, but more of a pitch or a sound. So it's like walking up a ladder, and it depends on where she is in her time of life and how she's feeling. And by that is the level of higher consciousness that will be in her expansion, and the answers will come within that. So as she sees it, it is almost more of a sound or a pitch.
that sound or pitch, is that something more and more humans are experiencing?
Yes, and also through the earth. So everything is connected, and so the pitch or the ringing sound can be a shift within them, and when this develops, this is when you get the answers in a different perspective of what is going on within them at the time.
Okay, can you please explain us the purpose of the higher self?
The purpose is to show and tell you exactly where you're at in time and space. And it's the doubt or what the ego would not allow. So it is telling you the answers of exactly who you are and what needs to be shown at the time within your existence, as your soul is also part of this as well.
Well, my next question would be, where is the memory stored that the higher self has access to?
It's in like a bank, you would call. So everything is, if you would say, you could see it swirling within a existence in time. It's like placing a spoon in a soup bowl, and as you swirl, you see different parts, different colors, different textures.
So elaborate on that, please. If we would say the memory is stored in a certain place or a time, again, I'm going from the human perspective here, how would you call that? Is there a name to that, or any descriptor that we could understand?
In the memory bank, there's no names. It already exists. Everything's already existed. It is the belief that we don't believe. So it can be changed in many ways through other existences. And this is when it becomes incredibly important to the outside world rather than the earth of other life forms are also in this memory bank as well.
So is this memory bank within or outside of the higher self, so to speak?
Both.
Well, then the question would be, how far reaching is the higher self allowed to access information? Are there limits to the information access?
There can be certain limits depending on if it is a chemical reaction chain. So it is almost as if something comes within, like a bug or some type of virus, then it has to only be able to perform as much as possible, as it can change the outcome of things.
So who decides how much information is being accessed?
The individual.
So basically the higher self would be allowed to access all information, but it's the individual itself that is limiting it.
Yes.
Please explain in human terms the connection between the higher self and the idea of soul.
The soul is and always will be, and it can go in different directions in different lifetimes. It is the free will. So the soul can move around. It has the drive, like the driver, and make the decisions. There's a difference between that and what you call a higher self.
So higher self and soul are not the same.
No.
I have a question here, and I don't want to lead on that question, but still, could we understand the higher self being as the information flow and the soul as a container of the information?
They work in combination with each other. So it is an electromagnetic field working together as it recharges throughout a certain lifetime, and lessons that go through within a soul to ascend to another level as it works with the higher self. But being in a human body, there can be influences that affect that. And it is the soul's destiny or life path of understanding that existence. It is almost like the warrior within inside a human being. And it knows that it has to be that warrior in order to get to the higher self of the answers that are within.
To elaborate on the higher self's place or where it would be, again, is the higher self as we understand, is it more a being or is it just the memory bank of information?
Both.
Okay. Could you explain the difference between the higher self and the soul in human terms so we would understand the difference, even if it's connected as we know of, but how would you explain the difference so we could understand that?
The soul has the ability of free will. So it knows before coming into any type of life form the direction it needs to go. However, it can be influenced by the outside world. It is what you would call the spirit, the love presence within, which is another part of the higher self. It is finding that the higher self is a memory bank of many different emotions, feelings, and answers within one area, as each individual has to find the correct one. And it becomes a process almost like an equation, because the body has to understand as well in a certain frequency. So when it hits a certain frequency, which would be a sound wave, the soul knows, as that is the direction it needs to go. It's like a ladder.
So, to end that question, do we understand the higher self as being the collector of information and to make sure it's nicely memorized?
Yes, but it's only within an individual or individuals. And that is different than having a group of people with the same higher self. So a higher self can be connected to one or two at the most, no more than that, as if they have the same one.
Would you please explain that? What do you mean by that? Two at the most?
A split. So like split in half, as two become one, and these have the same higher self, as it kind of goes through a different wavelength between the two, and it bounces back and forth. So if you were to have a group of humans, many in a crowd, it is very rare, however, two could have the same higher self, but all the other individuals would have their own. And in order to get to that, it can take a lot of energy, and sometimes it can be very difficult.
Okay, thank you very much. Then my next question, is there any are there any misconceptions about the higher self from the human perspective?
As humans, we want to believe that's what on the outside is, not with what's on the inside. And we look so much around for answers. And all we have to do is just allow it to come instead of force it. And not just as humans, other beings in our dimensions and universe go through the same issues. And when this is happening in synchronicity, it becomes almost like a bounce back, because we're not understanding as human beings how higher selves can also be connected with other life forms, because they have different vibrations than we do. And a lot of times the doubt comes in because of that as well.
Wonderful, thank you very much. To end our conversation today, do you have a message for the human community?
Humans are very intelligent beings, as they have the abilities within them and all the knowing and the consciousness. And this is so important to not be lost within that, as there are other life forms that do not have this. And they want it within them. But they were not created to be able to do that. And that's why it's so much of a battle at times. It is almost like an envious with others. So it is so important at this time of existence as a human being to not get lost in that, as they will not become or ascend to who they are. And each time you go through the death process, that can actually lower you if you do not understand this. And you can become further away from what you would call your higher self.
How did this higher self information resonate to you? Let us know what you have to say in the comment section below. Now, as you're awake, Heidi, Can you please explain to our audience, from your perspective, the communication that we had with the higher self energy? Something from your point of view. Anything you want to say or elaborate on?
Well, as I've done these sessions before, and talking with the higher self, it's a familiar feeling, but this was more of different, like in the human body and feeling it differently. So I feel like it's more authentic, and you know, when we think of a higher self, we want to create something or an image of that, but it's not even about that. And I think that because we can feel and sense, it's easier to see it in that way. So for me, it was not about an image, it was just kind of feeling that around, that presence around. And I think it reminded me of when I separated from my body. So that is how I viewed it as. And so that's kind of what I felt, or if you want to say see, in that way. And that it's so big, it's even hard to comprehend that as well.
We leave you here, wish you a wonderful day, and see you soon again.